Debate, reprise le débat. The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honour to have the opportunity to speak to Bill C-223, an act to establish the Canadian Organ Donor Registry and to coordinate and promote organ donation throughout Canada. This is a monumental piece of legislation, and I'm very proud of my colleague, the member for Edmonton Manning, for introducing it, as it will absolutely save lives. My comments this afternoon will come from a different perspective than most of those who will have the opportunity to speak to this legislation. I do not presume to be an expert on organ transplant issues, so I ask the indulgence and the patience of my colleagues as I share some of my personal journey over the past several years. Some of you may already know it. On May 2, 2011, election night, as my wife Betty and I were watching the early results of the election along with a campaign volunteer, Betty suddenly experienced a headache. Within seconds, she collapsed to the floor, and while she was breathing normally and had a strong pulse, there was no response. Minutes later, following a 911 call, local volunteer firefighters from the New Dundee detachment were on the scene to provide assistance, and they were followed very closely by EMS personnel. Betty was taken by ambulance to Grand River Hospital, placed on life support, and immediately transferred to a major health centre for more specialized care. ICU personnel and surgical specialists cared for her and explained in some detail that Betty had experienced a spontaneous intracranial hemorrhage and that in spite of surgical intervention, attempting to stop the bleeding, their best efforts had been unsuccessful. The intense bleeding had applied extreme pressure to sensitive brain tissue and brain function had ceased. After consultation with neurosurgeons and ICU doctors regarding Betty's neurological death, we now were faced with the question of the possibility of organ and tissue donation. We were then introduced to a team of very compassionate personnel representing Trillium Gift of Life Network. They presented the options to us and provided the answers to all the questions that were raised by me and my 3 adult children. There was no doubt in our mind as to what Betty would want to do. We knew that she would want to continue giving in the same spirit of generosity in her death as she had always done in her life. Betty and I had also discussed this issue openly each time we renewed our driver's license and had always both agreed that should anything ever happen to either of us, we would be open to the question of organ donation. We would want to help in that way. As I reflect on the difficult journey of our grief during the difficult time, that journey of grief has been made less difficult by 2 key factors, Madam Speaker. First, our personal faith journey as followers of Jesus Christ and our confidence in the resurrection and the certain hope that he gives us. And second, our decision to follow through on Betty's wish that upon her death, if possible, her organs be donated. Why not help out one of those thousands of people who are currently on the waiting list for a specific organ? Many of those were waiting, still were in the prime of life. An organ donation can make the difference between life and death. Our decision, while not easy, was made somewhat lighter, knowing that someone else would possibly receive the gift of life, even as we journeyed into our own grief and loss. As an aside, Madam Speaker, on a technical note, let me assure members of this House and Canadians that we can rely on the safety of organ transplants in this country. This is because of Canada's strong organ transplant community and Health Canada's work in establishing rigorous safety standards and requirements through the implementation of the safety of human cells, tissue, and organs for transplantation regulations. In the years and months following Betty's death, the Trillium Gift of Life Network followed up regularly with letters of support, offering access to resources and letting me know of the health status of the organ recipients. 5 people have received the gift of life through organs that were transplanted: heart, liver, lungs, and 2 separate kidney recipients. In addition, others have benefited from the gift of her eyes, bone, and vessel tissue, which will aid in the transplant process. I know that because of our decision to donate, there are now at least 5 people enjoying life fuller, richer lives, and even more who are benefiting from tissue transplant. Madam Speaker, we are in a death-denying society. No one wants to think he or she will die before 80 or 90, and because of the amazing medical advancements, many people will live to go to that age and even beyond. However, we have no guarantee, as my family discovered so quickly and with no advance warning of any kind. We know the need. 4,000 Canadians are waiting for organ donations at any given period. In Ontario alone, over 1,500 people are waiting for a life-giving transplant. Over 1,000 of those people are waiting for a kidney transplant. It's easy to register one's intentions to donate. In Ontario, one can simply go to the website beadonor.ca. Elsewhere in Canada, go to www.transplant.ca. Right now, only 20% of Ontario's residents have registered their intent to be an organ or tissue donor. Why not go online right now and register? In addition to registering, it's important to discuss this matter with your family. Let them know your decision and then register at beadonor.ca. This decision could very well save a life and offer hope. Thousands of adults and children are counting on us and our fellow Canadians to give the gift of life. It's time that we, as a nation, close the gap between the need of life-saving and life-enhancing organs and the supply of organs that are available. Why not take steps now to make a difference? It could be anyone, a son, a daughter, or a granddaughter who will be the recipient of your or someone else's good decision to register to donate your organs. Madam Speaker, I think you and all of my colleagues will understand why I seconded this fantastic initiative by my colleague. It really is unacceptable that 200 Canadians die each year waiting for an organ transplant when only 20% of Canadians are registered. Canada needs a national initiative that raises organ donation awareness and encourages people to register to be a donor. Like I said at the beginning of my talk, a Canadian organ donor registry will save lives, and I am hopeful that all parties in this House will unanimously support this extremely important legislation. And let me just add, Madam Speaker, I ask the government not to hide behind potential jurisdictional challenges and to support Bill C-223. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Resuming debate, reprise de débat.